This week we're doing Boundless Light by Katie DeBoer. I'm Sarah Lyles.
And I'm Jamie Livingston, and we are so approachable. So this book has been a big transition for us, something that we have never done before, sci-fi, faith-based, bringing in the author. So I hope that you listened to our TLDR episode because we kind of gave you the background. And then I really hope that you sat down and listened, or maybe you're on the treadmill, maybe you're in the car, whatever. I hope that you listened to our bonus episode because we really got into the meat of this book with Katie. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool. I'm glad that we were able to have her in the studio. And you know what?
What?
She stuck around, and we got to ask her some of the hard-hitting questions about spoilers in the book. So We are going to turn it over and toss back in time to when Katie was in the studio. Check it out.
All right, thanks, Katie, for sticking around. I'm excited for some spoilers. I'm really excited for you to give us some explanations of things. People are like me, as we learned. I am not a scientist, nor do I aspire to be one. And science and me are a little bit, parallel.
Yes, if we're going to go with one of our graphs or one amplitude, something.
We never cross. That's what it is. So I'm excited to hear your perception, kind of helping us to understand a little bit more in the book for those that are going to read it or those that have read it. So thank you for sticking around.
Thank you for having me.
It's fun because we're typically just ranting at each other and asking questions and we don't have answers. And now we have the opportunity to get some answers.
Yes. Every time we leave with at least one question about the book, the author, questions to the author. Well, guess what? She's in studio and we can ask her.
So I think our first question, or at least mine, was that we didn't realize how small the O division was off the start. It wasn't until chapter 10 when we found out that there's only 3 of them. That was surprising to me because it felt like from page 1 that Andy was part of a bigger brigade, or that it was common knowledge and that people knew why she was rescuing them. And so it felt strange that there were only 3 of them. Was there a reason it was such a small division? I realize lightning, very important. Although, I will say, I was in the grocery store parking lot yesterday and I was looking up lightning facts because I was like, there are so many people struck by lightning. They could be using all of these people. Can you talk about that a little?
Sure. So we know that there was only 3, right, in the book. And you have to have a strike from lightning and survive it. And then you also have to have the physical ability to do high-intensity sports. So Andy was struck by lightning while she was water skiing. And we also know that the O division, they have these 3 major agents. But I would say their mission involves a little bit more than just the 3 agents as far as we see that AI tool being used. So the 3 agents are the primary people that do some of these missions, but it involves a whole lot more than just these agents going out and doing things. And it's covert, right? So we know that it has to be quiet and they have to get these special assignments and the training involved to keep them under the radar with everything, likely requires high-intensity training as well. And so the commitment to have someone, they also have to get rid of all of their family ties. So that's why they target people who can get rid of their family ties, who we see that with the 3 agents as well, that they have to basically let go of any past life because they have to take on all these different, identities and be these covert agents. So,
yeah, there's part of me that wondered though, because you liken it to a Navy SEAL or somebody else who has to be secretive in their missions. My husband's in the military. There's a lot that he can't tell me that goes on. It seemed strange to me that they couldn't have any family ties. That worked well to pull at both of the characters who have family used against them in this. But that was something where, like, at the back of my mind, I was like, they could probably still have a life, but I can see it being a huge risk to this very secretive organization. I thought that was really cool. And there was a whole support team. I mean, there was a whole underground base.
Right.
How did you feel about writing about the military aspects of this and creating this bunker that they work out of? And
it was fun. I will say I don't have a ton of military exposure. I am involved with some veteran services types of functions in Kent County. So I do have interaction a lot with vets. But the whole military aspect, I don't have that personal experience. So I'm probably coming at it, a little bit more creatively than I am necessarily realistically.
well, I thought it was interesting how they even got into it because there was elevator plates and badges and like infrared scans and all of this stuff. And I was like, well, maybe that does exist in these places. That was fascinating for them to have to try to beat the system.
I guess kind of going back to thinking of like what you said about not having family ties, I probably would that help more in your logic thinking that their only ability to kind of keep it covert was not having any ties, any friends. Because otherwise, I mean, if I had some superpower, I'm going to be like, Jamie, guess what? I just read a book in 15 minutes. This is amazing. I mean, and so part of that thinking, I would think that's what your logic is.
How can you live an ordinary life when you do have those superpowers, right? So it would be very difficult to try to keep that hidden.
But I think that's also the downfall is that those people can't live a life. That was the struggle that you were feeling, like even going out to a restaurant and they end up under attack. But like Andy was so close to Clarissa because I was the only person that she could actually bond with. And so it was a lonely life, a lonely superhero life, which was kind of sad.
It was. I kind of felt like in parts of it, like they were chosen, right? They were individuals that were chosen. They had to have specific qualifications, but like just being chosen to hold such a power, like how that would feel. Could you imagine, I guess, coming from the writer of having your thoughts behind feeling behind someone, like, okay, how would it feel to carry all these? How would it feel to have no family ties? Why was I chosen? Would it be like a blessing or a curse?
Probably both, right?
Yes,
I mean, we see at the end, too, that Gregor feels regretful that she's been in this long and she hasn't been able to even, have a boyfriend, right? So she hasn't been able to live. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse.
Well, and she's reconnecting with family. So it's not like a line that says that they can't because now she's going to go after it. I mean, we don't really know what is next for the O division. Maybe that's in the next book. But I did like, Gregor was definitely a father figure. And so it wasn't like they were completely left out of a family setting. It did seem like the people that worked together were a unit until you got dummy A and dummy B that come into the picture and ruin everything. I wanted to know your inspiration for Steve. Because Steve Herder, right, seemed like such a unique character. He's a lab tech who has autism, it appears. What was your motivation or inspiration for that one?
So he was one that came in later, actually. He wasn't in my original, draft when I was young. So he comes mostly personally. My oldest daughter does struggle with sensory processing stuff. And she's brilliant, though. She's 11 and she's doing high school algebra. And so I really wanted to be able to represent some of the unique people that we have in our world who have so much value that they can add that are very much underrepresented in some of our stories and just some of our movies and stuff like that. So
I loved that he came in to save the day and that he played a very large role. Like his name came up a second time and I was like, wait, who is that?
Because it wasn't for like a little while, right?
Yeah.
So he was forgettable, right?
Yeah, kind of. It was such it was quick introduction. And then it was like, wait, let me go back on my notes. Where was he? So, yeah, it was cool. He was cool. I mean, the thriller, pardon me, right? Because that's my, enjoyment. I loved how I feel like it was pretty quick. Like Hector earned, like in Deshae Smith murder, like all that like happened, like right at like chapter 4. I believe it was like super fast. And so that part and the thriller aspect was really cool. How did you, pulling and weaving together the story, thinking through, I know you said sci-fi, and then is thriller kind of where you're like, I really want this to have like a big entrance, and I know it's going to kind of lull a little bit, but then come back to it?
So in part 1, you get a lot, right? You get the world building, you get the mystery part of it, of Hector's trying to figure out his first case. You get Clarissa being all, drunk and wanting to kill herself. You get Andy trying to figure out what's going on, and Gregor trying to figure out what's going on, and Marvin comes in, and Eric's, going amok too. So there is a lot in there. As far as the thriller aspect, I've never really read, I guess, like a thriller. I've read a lot of sci-fi, but I don't know about necessarily a thriller. So people have said that this book is somewhat similar to how it's Robert Patterson, right? Writes of that it wants you to, or like it hopefully is a page turner. And so I just kind of wanted to end most of the chapters like, oh, I need to figure out what's going on. So I would say the action, it probably does lull quite a bit in part 1, and you're still trying to figure out what the heck is this story. But then it does pick back up for the rest of it, especially in the frequency when you have the raid. I mean, that one is like, whoa.
Right. The pace, once you get past part 1, the pace really does start to pick up. And so I know you had said that like you were getting a little bogged down in the sci-fi,
right,
in the scientific term, trying to figure that out. And you had said like, this is the world building. Like there is a lot that you need to lay out in a book like this. But then it's just action. Once you're actually introduced to all of the characters, it's like boom, 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 boom. And they're on a chase. They're all over the place.
Right.
And so you do get the thriller once you're in it. And so I will say for anybody who is thinking about putting the book down, like
it's
keep
worth
going.
It's worth keep going. Because
there's a great message, and it does, you've said it too, like it's fun. It's fun after part 1.
Yeah.
Like that's when, like you can tell you had fun writing it because it was the fast-paced and like twisty-turny.
I think for me, like Clarissa was someone that I wanted to know what was going on. I don't know because she was so bogged down. She was so like wanting to kill herself. I was like, okay, where can I find out what's going on with her? Like it was like pushing through because I wanted to know where she was going to end up. And like that, it made me sad for her and then happy for her at the very end because of the redemption. And it was cool for me. Like in that one chapter, I'm like, I envision heaven, and that, I don't know if that was kind of like your thoughts behind it. It was like, wow, that was just so cool that she truly saw the light in that. And so for me, Clarissa, if I have to say a favorite character, that's the one I really actually enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I would say with part 1, I've told people, if you can get through part 1, the rest is fun. Because part 1 is a lot and you're not quite sure, and that's somewhat purposeful. You're not quite sure which parts are all that significant. Like Steve, he was forgettable, right? He was forgettable, and that was purposeful. I wanted you to kind of forget him because look what he did. And he was someone, that had a struggle and, underrepresented in our stories. And so I wanted him to kind of be a redemptive figure.
That's cool. That's really cool because I guess you think in life there's a lot of people in our life that are working behind the scenes or forgettable, but actually have a huge impact into the whole story. So that's really cool.
I was suspicious early on because with Clarissa's blackouts, it had been mentioned a couple times that there was a prototype light that was being kept in their house. Did you intend for that to be something that seemed sketchy or not? Because I was waiting for that to be the twist and to that be the reason, like they were using artificial light to try to fuel them, or that somebody had tampered with those lamps that were like giving them their charge at home in the dark. And that to me felt like it could have been something, and that you need to go to the true source of light for it to actually fuel you for good. And so that was like, my brain was going there. And I was like, I don't know if she considered that at all, but like I thought I had this nailed, and then it wasn't a thing at all.
No, that's really good. It's a good analogy. But no, my brain was not there at all. It was just a light that would emit that frequency that could charge them.
And I saw Clarissa and I thought, oh, it's the alcohol. She's blacking out, drinking too much, partying too hard. And so it's causing these blackouts. At first, for a while, I was like, she did all these things. She's a horrible person. And I think that's why I was so interested in her story to like, all right, if she is the murderer, I got to keep going. Is she, is she doing all these things? I want to know how. Want to know where. But yeah, so it was interesting.
So when they're we can talk about Lenny in a minute, but at Lenny's bunker of a place, like out in the wilderness, she's injured, okay? Andy has been shot, and they take her inside to sleep on the couch. Why would she not have been put outside in sunlight? Like, that to me was the most bizarre thing, that you have a solar-powered human and you're going to put her inside when what she needs is outside to help her heal. I was angry. I was like, what are they doing? And she's going to be low-powered. She's going to have no charge. Like, that makes no sense. This is a person who cares about her. This is a person that cares about her. Put her in the sunshine.
Well, her charge was pretty good at the moment. So I think she was at, around 40%. So Gregor probably understands well what the O cells can do. And you could see that he was far less worried than Hector was. So he was pretty certain that she was going to repair herself. And then we also see they have to stabilize her, and they get blank. Some of the things, just the resources to have around the cabin or shack or whatever you want to call it, they needed access to. And, if they didn't have Lenny's help, they wouldn't be able to get that. So it makes sense for her to be inside.
I just thought it was so funny. And maybe that's also me being the anal person about my phone always being fully charged, because 40 does not seem adequate. That seems like a very
less
low
than half.
number. And if it's going through more power to heal her, she's being drained. So I was stressing. I was like, this is so dumb. She should be outside. And so then when she's outside in her spandex and soaking up the sun, I was just like, she should have been out there the whole time, and then this wouldn't be a problem.
She did go out that evening, though, too, because she said, I'm really low now. So then she did go out and get more sun.
I know where your head's at, though. I get it. Yeah. I thought the same thing. I thought, why?
The one thing she needs, just go give it to her.
Okay, so speaking of Lenny,
Yes.
his bunker, they had to get all this stuff to take with them. I was so, for a while, why do they need that? Who are they going to see? They need ammo? They need liquor? I'm like, all right, let's buckle up and see what's going on. What were you saying that you said, let's talk about Lenny?
Well, Lenny is just a fascinating character in and of himself. So he worked in the O division and was canned, it seems. And I thought it was so funny that he left carrying all of his scientific work because he was smart enough to outsmart them by making everything invisible. So that just cracks me up. I mean, that technology is also amazing. That's probably the most far-fetched out of our science fiction. But is it? I don't know.
They do have blankets now, that can make you look completely invisible. So it is kind of freaky to think about. But
It's very freaky to think about.
So tell me your thoughts about creating Lenny, because Lenny is kind of a disgustingly funny character. I mean, he's kind of comic relief, but like you said, we needed him. We needed his resources. So he's just this crude, crass weirdo. Tell me about him.
So I've pretty much lived the life of Green Acres. I grew up very city, and my husband's very rural. And so I've been exposed to a lot more different types of people. And I have a few Lennys, that in my life.
Mom,
where
am I a redneck?
Yeah. Well, that was my son. He asked if he was a redneck, and I said, yes, you are. And so I do have a certain person or people that if I go to their house, I put my arms up just to make sure and say, it's just me, it's just Katie. Like, I just have to make sure because I know there's a shotgun right there inside the house. So Lenny, I think he's a lot more real life character than a lot of people want to give credit for, at least in like the rural areas of our country.
That's true.
True.
I can
lived in
definitely
Oklahoma.
see.
Yes, I know. That's true. And she didn't, do you know, I got to say this, and I'm going to laugh. You'll probably cut this out. Do you know what gar are?
Gar?
Yes, see, she doesn't either. Fish. They're scary.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Sorry, gar.
She didn't know what they were, and I was like, they're very scary.
They are not in the great, beautiful lakes
of Michigan.
Yeah, we don't have gar.
In the process of writing this, when you went from transitioning to part 1 to part 2, what were you really looking like? Okay, we're going to transition over. What was the big part of part 2 that was like, I really want this to stand out the most?
We find out her brother's alive.
Yes.
And so that I was waiting to see what twist you were going to throw at us. And so that was exciting to find out. And so I think that also plays into my next question, because Andy learns that her brother's alive, and they're trying to convince Eric that his wife is actually gone, because he's now holding on to hope that she's alive. Let's talk about Eric's arc, because he kind of was he was difficult to read because it was like, you're being fooled right now. Like, you're blinded by love right now, and in an idiotic way. Like, it just felt like, wow, you can't see the writing on the wall here. So talk to us about Eric a little bit.
I think mostly what inspired me with Eric is some of the people that want to be more politically active, but they have this blind passion and hope. So I've been involved in some of the political areas at home, and there's a lot of people that so passionately believe something to be true when it's not. And like even writing people off or believing someone's great when they aren't or corrupt when they aren't. And I definitely saw that the last couple years of just, wow, there's a lot of people that just will hold on to something because they can't handle the truth. And so for Eric, that was kind of some of my inspiration for him of he's that person who just can't let go. He wants to hold on to that blind, hope that something is real when, hopefully deep down inside he actually, I think he knew, but he just couldn't handle it.
I felt like he was questioning, like he was kind of fighting back against it, but gave in every time. Like I could feel him like,
you could
questioning
feel the
Marvin
yeah.
and like, okay, but what if? I think that's what he was going back to was but what if she is alive? I need to try this. And so like it was a minor wrestling, but I feel like he was wrestling with that as well. How about his ending? Because I did kind of predict that Eric would flip sides or that he would be part of the ending. And so it was really cool to see him finish Marvin. And like I was glad to see him turn, but then it seemed like he was too far gone. So this book is a lot about redemption. And so I was ready for the epilogue to say like, and he's back in the O division. And that wasn't the case. So why did you leave him on those terms?
Maybe for a sequel, if I wanted to go there. I think he makes a very a good foe or a good, antagonist. I think he's someone that if I were to do another book, I would explore a whole lot more as far as his backstory a bit too. And I wanted to, sometimes when you believe in faulty things, it has an effect. And I would love to say that everyone is redeemed in life all the time, but that's just not reality. And so if I do keep going with a book, with another book, he's going to be back.
Yeah.
And we'll see more of his story.
And to me, I almost am curious, kind of hearing you say all that, is like a prequel. Almost like to hear his. See, again, I learned reading The Hunger Games. If you listen to our episodes, I'd never read a Hunger Games book. And so hearing the backstory of people to explain what's going on really, it says a lot. Because a lot of what our backstories are really do shape kind of our character.
I just also questioned when the president rolls in and is like doling out all these awards. It's like, well, should Eric be awarded something? Like, I mean, he ran off, which I don't think that ever could, even with superhuman powers, whatever. I like from a super secure, top secret base. I don't think anybody would have left that facility. Like, it would have been locked down. So the fact that he was able to escape, I was already like, I don't think so. But in the list of things, like, he does kill the bad guy. Should he have been rewarded?
That's a good question.
Well, he wasn't. So
I will say all the security was already down on the O division, so that did kind of give him a little bit more of an out to get out.
Yeah.
But, he wasn't rewarded. If I was, well, I don't want to be president, but if I was, I don't know if I would reward him, like he ran off, he's not hanging around, he's not taking responsibility
more
for
than a dozen people.
Yeah, he's not taking
yes.
responsibility for his actions. I don't know. I don't think he would be someone that I would want to award.
Yeah. True.
I really enjoyed Hector's little side trip to visit the president and how he was able to kind of sneak in there and pass the message along. That's being a journalist and being somebody who has covered a bunch of these campaign events and like the tight security and how that could go down. I could envision it. I've said this already. Like, the movie was playing in my mind while I was reading this. And so I can see this all unfolding, like slipping a thumb drive in the handshake, and like I can see it all. I enjoyed that. That was a moment that I particularly enjoyed.
I really want to know about Marvin's procedure. I think you noted like Frankenstein. I want to know like what was your story and how would you explain it? I had a really hard time envisioning what that was like. I just am curious, like from the author's point of view, what was your thoughts on how that was unfolding?
So I think Eric is a fun antagonist, but he has this blind hope that we know is not true. Marvin's inspiration is more entitlement, right? He started these O cells. He deserves to have them. And so he's the type of person, he risks, it is kind of a Frankenstein procedure. We know that, they normally do it. It's a week-long process, but since they're coated in the stem cell type of stuff, you can inject them just about anywhere and it should be fine. So that's also why it's like a lot quicker timeline for his procedure. So yeah, he gets the lightning strike. He's trying to, the electrical charge is trying to go throughout his body so that, he doesn't get tons of electrical charge in one spot. And so it is kind of a Frankenstein procedure, but I think I wanted to heighten the villainy a little bit.
My brain kind of went there earlier in the book when it was explained that it was a lightning strike and how Marvin explains that it like codes your cells differently or whatever. And I was like, I bet you could shock a person or like, I mean, if this was a thing, like I feel like you could rig up a way. Again, I was looking up statistics about how many people were struck by lightning to find out like, well, could we have more than 3 people here? Like this will be fun. But I did question that. And so I was curious if they were working on that science as well. So it didn't truly surprise me that Marvin was like, shock me, like hit me with some lightning and then put it in. But I loved that. That was fun.
All right. So at the end, you see Clarissa and kind of her redemption through all of that. That was awesome. And it was really cool to see. I just loved the ending towards where Hector and Andy are like, let's give it a shot, like in their love story. And so I thought that was also a cool way to kind of tie all that together.
I like that Andy was trying to be open to the opportunity, right? Because she has been so scared and hasn't really had any good friendships or relationships with anyone. And so she's very scared. But that she was willing to do it, it showed her growth in the story.
Well, she was honest about it too. She's like, I don't know how. Like, I thought that was brave and honest to be like, I mean, I do kind of want this, but I don't know how. And it's not because she's naive. It's just she hasn't had the opportunity. And so I think that Hector's in it for the right reasons as well. Why don't you tell us your favorite part or your favorite character or what was the most fun thing? Let's end on something super fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't talk about Lenny's shenanigans a ton. Okay. Shenanigans,
Yes.
Good word.
Great word.
And so that was probably the funnest to write, was I would be giggling in the middle of the night, just thinking of, his shenanigans and what he was going to say. And so that was a lot of fun for me.
I did enjoy his vernacular because the things that he said, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like city folk and like government cronies, like they were very funny phrases that I have heard people say. So like you were talking about how this is mimicked off of people that you have experienced. And like, yeah, those people do exist. So he was very comical.
Yeah, he was fun.
What character was the hardest for you to write?
Hector, probably. Just because his personality and I think is very different than mine. So that one was hard for me to do. Andy was easy. Clarissa was easy. I feel like I'm a lot of those characters in a lot of ways. Even Gregor just recently having more government experience. He wasn't too bad. Steve was easy and Lenny was easy. So yeah, Hector was probably the one that I have the hardest time identifying with.
Now you did say that Gregor is Jason Gregor and that you ended up marrying a Jason, but Jason, the character, came first. Is that right?
Yes. People have read the book and they're like, oh, did you do this after your husband? No, the character came first.
Did you consider switching it or was that like a hard line? No.
Well, I had even early on when I started writing it, he was going to go by his last name. So to have Jason in there wasn't really that big of a deal for me because most people just will know him by Gregor, and it's only a few times that his first name is in there. But I did actually change Eric's name because I had met someone that has a very similar name to him, and I didn't want to resemble a character that's evil or a bad character.
Is it Eric with a C instead of Eric with a K? Because that was really... I think we can talk about the redemption scene because we talked about your journal entry, and that's the moment that God comes into her cell and says, I am. I mean, that in and of itself is powerful. We know that. I am light. I am boundless light. That's where we get the title of the book. That's where we get this entire concept. But this is an experience that she is actually experiencing God's love, God's light. And so that really was a beautiful picture of redemption. Maybe you can speak into your feelings surrounding that.
So God can go anywhere. He can be anywhere. And I knew the title was going to have light in it somehow. And then I wanted to represent somehow that the light is everywhere and anywhere and can reach us anywhere, even in the pit, even in the cell, even in our hardest and darkest times in life, that the light is still present and it can still change your life. So yeah, just that God is boundless. He's bigger than us. He can do whatever he wants to do and he can pull us out from that pit.
That is beautiful. Katie, thank you so much for
Yes,
visiting us,
thank you.
stopping by.
Thank
I know you are
you.
out of town, and it was so great to be able to connect and get all these answers. I am so excited for people to listen to these episodes and, more importantly, go and pick up the book. So we're happy to support you and grateful to have you on.
Thank you so much. You guys are so approachable.
Okay, guys, we are back. It's just Sarah and I, and we are going to kind of give you our perspectives. We really appreciated Katie kind of showing us the light.
Well, as they saw, my mind was blown.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the book and just our overall perspective of it, and because I like sci-fi. I'm curious. I know that you say that you learned a lot on this one, but this was a stretch for you, right?
It was. It was really hard for me. So sci-fi is way out of my scope. You say that historical fiction is way out, but sci-fi is even more far-fetched. There's parts of it that are really challenging for me to open my eyes of okay, can I make this into something that actually would happen? And so there was a lot of parts that I was totally not believable, not I can't fathom the thought of 3 people and all these big operations happening, but it's so covert. So that was really challenging for me to grasp and understand.
So I think I have this wonderful ability to suspend my disbelief. And that's part of where you laugh at me for my ratings of books, because I am a very generous rater. And it's just, I'm going along for the ride. I'm going to go where the author takes me. And so even if it is a little unbelievable, I'm there. They're going to take me there. At one point in the book, I mean, we can talk about the science here because I think that it is actually really cool. But the O cells, in and of themselves, I feel like scientists could potentially figure that out. And I think that they would want to put it in more than 3 people. So yes, I think that division is going to grow. Maybe we would see that in a sequel. Maybe that's something that, I mean, Marvin was figuring out how to fake lightning bolts. So maybe for the next book, they're up to 100 agents and they're actually figuring this out. The part that I thought was not believable, which was still very cool, I very much enjoyed it, was that Lenny was able to make Andy invisible.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's those invisible cloaks. That's a newer thing, right? But the whole thought of that, invisible, to be a fly on the wall.
Well, and it was pertaining to her O cells. And so it was well, maybe there's just a couple pieces inside of her that are invisible instead of her whole body. And if she was holding something, I think Katie went into the science, or in the book it says you have to wear black clothing because that would be the easiest to mask. I don't know, but I thought it was a great workaround for her to be able to get back into the building. The fact that the invisibility also changed her heat signature so that she didn't appear on infrared scans. There was a lot going on. And so, yes, it's science fiction. That does not exist.
Oh, and I can't imagine that ever existing. Because really, if you're a human and you're living, you're going to radiate heat. So there's always going to pull heat out of you. And you're always going to get infrared, you're always going to show. So that part, don't believe it.
But it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Yes. And sure, would I like it? Absolutely.
Right. So I think there were just some other things along the way that we thought maybe were a little unrealistic, but let's be fair. In every scary movie, there's the person who is walking in the dark and you're don't open the door.
And they open the door.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
Yes.
That exists. So it's not to say that this book had anything different than other things that we've seen or read, because there's always somebody doing something that you didn't think they should do. In this case, it was the 3 of them stopping at the hotel for the night.
And why that stuck out so much, right? I think because that to me was the most believable thing. Okay, someone's chasing you, right? And so when someone's chasing you, are you going to stop?
Especially if it's somebody chasing you that has superhuman speed. Because we saw Andy was able to catch back up with her crew by running. So the fact that Eric was after them, they weren't going to stop after driving an hour.
Yeah, no.
They didn't lose his trail, whatever. And I've been on plenty of road trips. One person drives while the other person sleeps. We did ask Katie about that, and she had said, in retrospect, maybe they shouldn't have stopped. Maybe they should have just stopped at the gas station, gotten their supplies, and had the conversation and decided where they were driving. But I did really like the hotel. They had a good conversation.
Right.
You got to see kind of Andy and Hector interacting a little more, and it was sweet. So believable or not, I don't think if I was being chased, I would be stopping to get a hotel room.
No.
No.
And maybe it was to pull out the love story aspect. Maybe thinking through, as you're saying, that maybe she wanted to show them interacting more. That would make sense. But overall, if you're running from people who are superhuman, you're not stopping.
No, not at a cheap, seedy motel. Like, it's not happening. Another thing that we haven't talked about this at all, but I did not think it was believable when Andy went and rented a car. It took like 2 seconds. I mean, she already had a name on file or whatever, and they're like, oh, here's your keys. It's like,
have you ever rented a car?
Yeah.
It takes forever. You know, like when you go, even to go drop off a car when you're at the airport, you have to add like an extra 45 minutes.
Right. It's annoying. And then like, oh, did you want the extra insurance on that? She's just paying in cash and walks away. I'm like, I don't buy it. But I like it for a book. I like it for the ease. And like, are you going to write that? That's going to be way too clunky. But I just laughed because I was like, that's not what it takes to rent a car these days.
All right. So I'm just curious, is there any other parts that stuck out to you that maybe we didn't reach, maybe we didn't talk to Katie about? She gave a lot of good background. Mm-hmm. She helped us understand a lot of what was going on, especially for someone like me. Like the science in it, I was like, this is not my norm. I don't normally pick up a sci-fi. But any more that stuck out to you that maybe you enjoyed, because someone who did enjoy the sci-fi aspect?
I really liked Marvin's procedure. I liked the concept of him trying to take advantage of his own things. Katie had said he deserved it. Like, he was the one who started and helped invent the O cells, and he wanted them. So there's that greed and just that deep desire. And so the fact that he figured out a way to make it, and it really did feel like Frankenstein to me, because when you watch the movie and there's like lightning bolts, and that's why Frankenstein has the bolts, like, so that
he can pick up the lightning. Right?
Yeah. So that's what I was picturing, and I really liked it. I'm going to read a quote because it said, his eyes darted wild, like he swallowed a storm and couldn't spit it out. This changes everything. And that, I just, like, I could visualize that, and I was like he swallowed a storm. Like, he was just struck by lightning. So that, I thought, was a really good description of that. And there's a lot of very descriptive writing in this book. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can talk about that, because I think that's something that we were a little nitpicky about.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That the writing was clunky.
It was. And sometimes I feel like, and I think you and I talked about this, I'm not sure with Katie or not, but sometimes I would read a sentence that seemed like, what just happened? I wanted to go back. Katie was so great at like hearing our feedback and wanting to grow and make things better. In fact, she changed some of the things that we gave her feedback on. Some of her, I felt like, run-on sentences. I like to add inflect in my reading, and some like, you know, I want some like up and down voicing nature, like to give it to more of a realistic. And so I felt like I couldn't do that in some of the parts because it was challenging on a lot of the descriptions, like, and a lot of just the words. I felt like there was a lot of words in one sentence sometimes.
Yes, it felt like one sentence could have been split into 3 sentences. So maybe it's kind of like Lord of the Rings-ish, because I remember trying to read that, and like it took like 3 paragraphs to describe a blade of grass. That's not what this was, but it was almost every sentence had 2 commas. They were really long, and so you did have to be paying really close attention. But I know from the reviews that we read, people really enjoyed the descriptive writing. And so that is a way to characterize it. Yeah. For me, it was bulky. And so that's also coming from a journalist and somebody who writes for TV and a teleprompter. And it's really important for someone like me to be able to know where the sentence is going from the start. And so that's one subject, one verb, period. Yes. And so not descriptive writing at all. And so that's where it's a big change for me. So when you're reading, you want to know where you're going, but this was kind of taking you on a journey with every sentence. So I got tired almost reading some of this.
Yeah, I could see that. And part of it was like the term kiss it. I wanted to be like, get to the point, just keep it simple. I just need you to, I need to understand what's going on, because I feel like this is still going and I still don't understand where we're going. And so there was parts of that I felt like, okay, I'm on page 70. Where are we? Where are we at? But remembering that this was self-edited and published. So for that, understand that. You know?
I think that kind of leads into my review of this book, because I think that for anyone to pick up a book that they started in their 20s and to come back when they're almost 40 and say, you know what? I want to actually do this. And she did it on her own, self-published, self-edit. So there are going to be some errors along the way. That's granted, like what's going to happen.
We're humans.
So she's a boss. She did it, and I'm so proud of her, and that deserves a 5-star rating in and of itself. Like that, kudos to you, Katie. Like that was amazing. When it comes to the book, I'm giving a little lower of a rating just because it was clunky, and I know she says you have to get through part 1 to get to the fun, which is hard as a reader because you don't know if there's fun. You don't know if it's going to be 200 pages of slogging through this or if there is something. So I'm telling you now, when you pick up this book, there is fun. We're not lying. Like there is a fun journey to go on, but you do have to get through those first 70 pages of part 1, which is where your mind was blown. She kind of explained how the parts were sectioned off and meant different things. And so part 1 is kind of the biggest, broadest. She's throwing spaghetti at the wall, and we're seeing what sticks in parts 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so there is a lot that you could get bogged down with. There's also the faith component to this. And so as a believer, as somebody who is a fan of this, has read Christian fiction, I enjoy this. I can see how somebody who is not a believer, is not familiar with Christianity at all, where this would feel hokey.
Like Clarissa would maybe, that scene.
I mean, there's definitely a scene where Clarissa sees the light. To somebody who has knowledge of the Bible, I would relate it to a Saul to Paul conversion, seeing a bright light and having hope, having redemption. And so that was beautiful. I loved that. But I could see that being portrayed in a way that is, I don't want to say subtle, maybe implied.
Right.
So that's just where it's tricky. She said that there was no other way for her to write this book, and I get that, and I respect that. I could see this being a movie. I could see this being done where it is a strict light versus darkness, good versus evil, and let people feel the undertones of God in there. And so I think that would maybe appeal to more people. So she's hoping that people get the redemption message. And I'm struggling to see if the people who need it will be the ones to pick up this book.
Yeah.
I hope and I pray that this book reaches somebody, even just one person, to show them that love and that acceptance, because this book does go into some dark places.
Yeah.
We're talking suicide. We're talking deep depression. And so I hope that it accomplishes its mission. And I loved the passion in Katie's responses and her heart that she poured out in this book. And so for that, I'm giving this a 4-star review because there was a lot in here that is redeeming, pun intended, but you have to get to it.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage people to go on the journey and trust us when we say that there is actually some fast-paced stuff. I enjoyed the chase. I enjoyed them plotting and planning, and then the final big scene where they're battling it out. Like, I loved all of that, but you have to kind of work your way through that. So that's where I'm at. What have you got? I just talked a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot. And there are some aspects I really, truly resonate well with you, like the faith aspect. I think that's really a good message to be given. I think she did a good job for those that are believers. Those that aren't, it could almost, you're going to miss the mark, right? And so I felt that part was hard. For me, sci-fi is not my go-to. I'm not excited about sci-fi.
No, you're not.
So, like, for me, I'm like, all right, sci-fi thriller. Okay, great. But I felt like when I hear the word thriller, I want like super fast pace right from like the first or second page. And I felt like it was so predictable. of who the dark was. That was challenging for me. I was hoping I was wrong. Like,
I
the whole
thought there
time.
might be a twist. Like,
Yeah.
there could have been, but it was very obvious who the bad characters were.
Right. And that was hard for me because I like twists and turns and like page turning, and so sometimes I'd be like, I can't even turn the next page because I've got to get through this. And you kept being like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. I promise it gets better. And so once I did get to part 2, I started to pick up the pace, and so it started to actually have more action, had more understanding of what was going on, and more intensity. So after you got through part 1, which is about half of the book, then I was like, okay, now I can start to see where it's enjoyable. I was challenged in that I just was like, okay, understanding. I'm glad Katie was on here. It helped me so much in my understanding. I was challenged in the fact that the writing was hard to get through for me. Again, I'm glad she's going to take our feedback and she's going to change things. So with that, I got to give it like a 3.2-ish.
Okay.
Because it was hard. A sci-fi is hard for me.
Right. Well, and it's hard to rank something up against some of the other books that we've done because this is in a category of its own.
Absolutely.
And so that's also where my 4 comes in. Like, it's for the genre that it's in. Like, that's where, like, I can't relate this to the Paris Apartment. I can't relate this to Funny Story. This is its own genre.
I mean, I think we talked about that well between the two of us, and just saying, like, we can't go against these big name publishing and editing because they've been through probably 100 people that have edited it and published, gone like, okay, we're going to help you build this storyline, where who knows how many times Housemaid has had edits and to make it better and more enjoyable for readers. And so the fact that she did it by herself is amazing.
Right. That's where I say 5 stars. Like, I will give you a gold star on top of your 5 stars because that is something to be proud of. And that's why I will support baby authors every day.
Yeah. I'm proud of her.
Right. So, and I loved, like you said, she was so receptive to our feedback. And I mean, we were critical, but also very praising. So I am grateful to see that and go pick up the book.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good.
It will be. All right, keep reading.
Keep ranting.
And remember, you're so approachable. Okay, the episode is over. If you enjoyed it, could you give us a thumbs up or leave a review?
It goes a long way toward helping us grow and meet new people like you.
Subscribe to get notified when the next episode drops.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see what we're reading next, recommend new books, and join the conversation.
We're so excited to have you on board.